Once upon a time, Irana and Olumu were married for 5 years. They had all the wealth they desired, but their marriage lacked one thing, a child. In the 5th year of their marriage, Irana's greatest fear came to pass. Her husband wanted a second wife. She cried and begged him to give her some more time. But he said, "My wife, I am not doing this to punish you. Look around us. We are very wealthy. Who will inherit all of her wealth?" When Ariana realized that Olumu's mind was in need of a child, she came up with a solution. If a wife was to be brought into our home, I must be responsible for choosing my co-wife. Her husband accepted. After all, he was only interested in a child. The next day, Ariana set out to see her best friend, Nawal, because she planned to ask her to be her husband's second wife. But when Nawal heard Ariana's offer, she immediately refused. "My friend, how can you say this? Are you not aware that I am getting married to Ibira in 3 months? And even if I was not getting married, I am not interested in marrying your husband." Ariana began crying and continued to convince her, but Nawal remained stubborn. Suddenly, she cleaned her tears, looked Nawal into their eyes, and said, If you don't do as I have said, I will tell the whole world you're miserable outcast." Nawal shivered at her friend's threat. She never knew a day like this would come when her best friend would use her own secret against her. You see, Nawal's parents were outcasts, popularly known as Avexilan. In Busoga land, there was a popular division between the Basiki and the Bakoli. The Bakoli are referred to as the son of the soil of the freeborn, and the Basiki people were usually dedicated to God. So they are regarded as slaves, strangers, outcasts, and untouchables. They were treated as inferior beings, and they were not allowed to dance, drink, hold hands, outshit, or have sexual relationship with one another. So due to maltreatment, Nawal's parents ran away from their village to a distant village to start a new life because the tradition was not fair. However, they kept their identity secret to avoid discrimination in their new home. Irana continued poking at her friends Nawal. "I think you know what will happen to your parents. They may be killed or perhaps banished for deceiving the villagers." Immediately, Ariana said that she left Nawal to think of all she had said because she had no doubt in her mind that Nawal would accept her offer. After all, her parents was involved too. Later that evening, Nawal visited Ariana and assured her that she would do as she had requested. Ariana was so excited. She even hugged her best friend and assured her that she would live in peace. She also apologized for threatening to expose Nawal's outcast. "My friend, forgive me. I was desperate. If a strange woman enters into this house, she might make my life miserable. But I know you would not do that." Eventually, the wedding rites were completed and Nawal was officially announced the second wife. One morning, 3 months after the wedding, Ariana was ill, so the village herbalist was to come and treat her. After thorough examination, he smiled at her and said, "Congratulations, you're pregnant." Olum was very happy. He had always imagined a day like this. Ariana was happy, but she also filled with regret. She regretted rushing into asking Nawal, her friend, to be her husband's second wife. So she decided to tell Nawal to leave the marriage because she did not want to share Olum anymore. And most importantly, she could bear children by herself. But her plan was soon shattered because the following day, the herbalist came to check up on her again. Just as the herbalist was walking out of their house with Olum, they came across Nawal, who had just come up from the market. She stopped and looked at her immensely, then talked to Olum and said, "I guess you're going to have a double celebration in your house. Nawal is also pregnant." When Irana heard the news about Nawal's condition, jealousy and anger came over her. began to think of how he should share the children compete with Nawal's child over Olum's property. Now her mind was made up. She went to tell Nawal to run away with her born baby. Unfortunately for her, Olum overcame